Got a late night pod for you, or something for you to check out early Wednesday morning. Whatever the case, glad you're with us on Friar Podcast, going solo. I wanted to get something in your feed after just a absolute banger of a day. For the Padres, trade deadline comes and goes. They bolster their bullpen, pick up Tanner Scott, probably the best reliever on the market. Add him to Robert Suarez, Jason Adam. After all that is done, after they make some impressive pickups to boost their chances going into to get into October and beyond, win just an absolute thriller against the Dodgers. Another walk-off victory, another win over LA in spectacular fashion, something that we've just grown accustomed to seeing from this team. So a lot to discuss, and it's just been a crazy day. Hope to do this earlier, but here we are. You got the Olympics going late on prime time, so bought me a little bit of time to get something into your podcast feed before I got to head to the studio for tonight's 11 o'clock sportscast. So appreciate you checking us out on NBC 7. Appreciate you checking us out on the On Fire podcast, whether you watch live on YouTube or in your podcast feed. Again, a late night one, and so wanted to get something into your feed. So if you're not with us late in the evening, that's fine. It's been a long day. Hopefully you can check us out Wednesday morning and relive what was a really, really eventful and seemingly important day for the Padres. So a lot to discuss. We'll spend a little time on the game, but the main thrust of this is to discuss the trade deadline. And so we will talk about that and what AJ Preller and company accomplished and what was said in the clubhouse after the fact. And so that's what we'll spend most of the next 20 or so minutes on. So look forward to doing that. Appreciate OG's, the sponsor of the On Fire podcast. Thanks for all they do for the On Fire podcast, for the NBC 7 sports team. Had a great time at another live pod last week at OG's in Carmel Mountain Ranch. Appreciate the hospitality and had a great time talking about Dylan Cease's no-hitter and previewing the trade deadline. So that was a good one. So thanks to OG's. Great place to catch a game, great place to catch Padres, maybe catch some Olympics, whatever your sport may be. Tons of TVs, great menu, and an awesome beer list as well, which we appreciate about OG's. So without further ado, the walk-up music. A trade deadline edition of the On Fire podcast, and of course, some goings on to discuss in the evening at Petco Park as they start a 2-game visit from the Dodgers, and they started in spectacular fashion with a walk-off victory in extras after going down 5-0 with Matt Waldron on the bump, and just another example of the heart that this team has, the resilience that they have shown again and again. They've now shown it twice with Matt Waldron on the mound. His last couple times out gave up 3. They went and scored 12 unanswered, I think it was. And in this case, Dodgers with the 5 spot in the first inning. Manny Machado helps them chip away. And then Donovan Solano pinch hitting for Jake Cronenworth. What a call from Mike Schilt, and it works out the game-winning single, walk-off single to score Ha-Seong Kim. 6-5 win for the Padres, now 7 games above 500. And so they come home from a really, really good road trip, taking series against drawing a blank here, against Cleveland, against the Nats, and of course against the Orioles. So a couple first place teams, 2 of the best teams in the American League. Start with a dud to start the second half against Cleveland, kind of pick things up. They do pick things up and really give themselves a chance to go 8 straight coming home, but couldn't pull off that comeback on Sunday against Baltimore. But You believe they could because they've shown the ability to do that, and they showed it again Tuesday night against the Dodgers, down 5-0. Manny Machado gets them started, get a couple more cross in the third, and that sets the stage for the ninth inning. Manny does it again. And we come to expect the sort of thing from Manny Machado, who is now just 10 home runs away from passing Nate Colbert and becoming the franchise leader in career home runs, currently at 154. 164 is the number he's shooting for. But Jackson Merrill, who, of course, we remember back in April, the go-ahead RBI when the 11th inning at Dodger Stadium, and he's been really, really good against LA, and the kid does not duck any smoke. He is right at home in big spots, as we saw. Walk off against the A's in the afternoon game, a game that Donovan Solano had another big swing, two big swings, really, a couple homers for both those guys in that game. And so just incredibly impressive stuff from Jackson Merrill at this stage in his career. Again, ninth inning, game-tying swing that set up Donovan Solano to win it. And Mike Schilt's team does it again. This squad is just different. They are completely different from what we saw last year, where in these close games, you didn't have a whole lot of hope. Extra inning games didn't have a whole lot of hope. Started 0 for 12, and finally got a couple to end in their favor in the last series of the season. Just a completely different club. You starting with that Cubs game, down 8-0, come back to win 9-8. You thought, okay, maybe this is a sign of things to come. Little did we know. I mean, that was a real clear indicator of what we can expect from this Padres club, because again, they've done it time and time again. They go down in games, doesn't matter. You feel like this is a team, we've heard the stat, most 4+ run innings in baseball. They have the ability to put up a crooked number. They've done that time and time again. They've got depth in the lineup. If it's Kyle Higashioka or Jackson Merrill or Donovan Solano, you expect the big hit. We've seen Luis Arraez do it. Obviously, Manny Machado tonight. We've seen Fernando Tatis Jr. do it. We've seen Jay Cronenworth with a walk-off. Up and down the line, they've got guys that can get the job done. And, not to be overlooked, the fact that the Dodgers scored 5 runs in the first inning and then finished the game with 5 runs. And there's been numerous situations like that where the bullpen keeps the opposing team in check. And you might get a few across early, but Yuki Matsui all the way down the line, Jeremiah Estrada, Robert Suarez pitched in the last couple of innings. They, have done some really, really good work to allow them to, keep the game within reach, not give up any more runs that, of course, in this case would have made it hard to get the win. So again, they do all that on a day where the bullpen got even better. A really impressive win. And really the stretch of games that they've had to start the second half was a big topic of conversation in the clubhouse, with Mike Schilt, AJ Preller, and of course the team itself, just kind of setting the stage for the trade deadline. And, look, I don't know if anything would have changed kind of their approach. I think they were going to be buyers. They were going to look to improve this club regardless. And so I don't know how much going, 7-2 on the road, a really tough stretch of games really impacted that. I think they were probably going to make similar types of moves regardless. But, there's a belief there, and there is proof beyond the belief. Xander Bogaerts was asked about, just kind of the expectations and that sort of thing because of what they've done. He's like, we did it. It's not, it's not hypothetical. Like, it's all based on the proof and what we've put on the field. And so, a lot to be encouraged about based on what they did against Cleveland, sweeping the Nats, and then, of course, what they did taking a series in Baltimore against another really good first place type club. I don't know where they're at in the standings right now, but obviously a playoff type team, a World Series type contender you would expect. And so that in and of itself was a statement. And another statement from AJ Preller, who's now gone all in for the 5th time, the 8th time, the last handful of years. Obviously, the Juan Soto deal, maybe even going back to the Clevenger deal, 2020 deadline. Obviously, what they did with getting Blake Snell and Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, Josh Hader along with Juan Soto. Time and time again, they've pushed their chips in, and understandably so for AJ Preller. Like, could you imagine him playing a conservative given what is, presumably at stake for himself on down the line if this is not a playoff type season, if this team does not go on a run, and if they allow things to turn out the way they did in 21 and 23 instead of 2022. So the conservative approach, I don't think would have ever crossed AJ Preller's mind this season. It was just a question of, okay, like how far would they push? And he seemed to kind of find like a nice middle ground. I think like the big headline as far as the deadline goes and what they did, bullpen's nasty. Bullpen is nasty. With the pickup of Jason Adam, with the pickup of Tanner Scott. They did that without sacrificing the big two. Now, there was a big four. Dylan Lesko, gone. Robbie Snelling, now gone in that Tanner Scott deal. But you keep Ethan Salas and you keep Leo DeVries. And I think that was the biggest source of worry, consternation, the biggest question going into this deadline. Like, would they sacrifice those guys to get a Garrett Crochet, fill in the blank? And the answer, after all, was no. And that was obviously a major topic with AJ Preller. He said, look, they always explore options and possibilities. They, of course, did that in this case with the starters market. Anytime there's somebody available, they're going to look into it. But they felt after a while that the market for impact relievers was more gettable, more attainable, more plentiful than the market for starters. And when you saw some of the prices, what was given up, you could kind of understand that. And I think by Wednesday, people thought, okay, maybe they're not going to get a starter. As it turns out, Martin Perez from Pittsburgh, there's your guy that will, have an opportunity or the obligation to try and eat some innings. And hopefully what we see from him going forward is better than what we've seen with like a 5.7 ERA so far with Pittsburgh. Brian Hoeing added to the list as well, a versatile guy. Luis Arias is just glowing about him, says he can do it all. He can start, he can close games. So just throw him out there wherever. And so maybe as you're trying to fill innings, Martin Perez, eventually Joe Musgrove, hopefully Johnny Brito gets right and gets healthy and he's able to contribute. Did I already say Martin Perez? Brian Hoeing as well. And so you've got, a number of guys that can, step in and give you innings, give you starts. And they're obviously going to need that with Yu Darvish taking some personal time or tending to a personal matter and Joe Musgrove kind of gradually making his way back. So, again, didn't get the big fish on the starters market, kick the tires, realize what the cost is going to look like. Preller didn't seem like blown away by what these guys cost. I think, you kind of come to expect that sort of thing. But they felt like their opportunity to improve the roster was best, looking towards the reliever market. And so they did that, obviously, starting with Jason Adam and the Rays deal over the weekend, continuing with Tanner Scott, all-star for the Marlins. Really, really good pitcher, Xander Bogaerts. I asked him, like, have you faced these guys? And he said, well, Tanner Scott, like early in his career when he was with Baltimore, said he was effectively wild, but the velocity and the stuff was there. And obviously he's harnessed that. And, you add in a lefty arm with Tanner Scott, that's, really, really impactful. And so, and then on Brian Adam, he's talking about Bogaerts is saying that, his stuff, just because of the movement, is really, really hard on righties. And so you've got some more options there. Mike Schilt did say he expects Robert Suarez to be their ninth inning guy. But Mike Schilt is also a guy that we've seen him like tinker and get creative with the bullpen, play some matchups, that sort of thing. So, I got to wonder, is there going to be a game where, you run into a ninth inning, a save situation, whatever the case may be, where you've got some lefties stacked up. Robert Suarez, he can get anybody out. But maybe you play the matchups there. We'll see. But it sounds like first blush, Mike Schilt plans on sticking with Robert Suarez in that closer role. But we'll see how that plays out because they've now got some options. And just a filthy looking. When you add Adrian Morejon, who's kind of having a coming into his own, I guess you could say, in that kind of late inning role. Jeremiah Estrada, we've seen him be, unhittable. And Robert Suarez. Now you add Tanner Scott. Now you add Jason Adam. Again, we'll see where Hoeing is in the mix. But you've got a really, really nasty Daniel De Los Santos now with the Yankees. So, that in itself might be addition by subtraction. And, just hadn't really got it done this season. But, kind of turning over this bullpen, adding some really, really impact type arms and putting themselves in a situation now where they're in these late games. We didn't even get to see these guys, obviously, Tuesday night against the Dodgers. They become even more fearsome when you get into a close game, late innings, and you're needing to, shut the other team down. They've got the arms to do it. They've got really, really good, proven guys that can throw from either side of the mound and be really, really effective. And so even though they didn't get that starter, again, it was looking pricey. Jack Flaherty goes to the Dodgers. So, as soon as the news kind of broke about Tanner Scott, Martin Perez, all that, we're in the clubhouse talking to the guys, and you see the news about Flaherty and the Dodgers. And so Garrett Crochet doesn't get dealt. So something to keep an eye on now going forward. What does that mean? And, I think, look, the fact that Tanner Scott is a rental, I think that with the price that they gave up, Robbie Snelling, Adam Major down the line, as AJ Preller said, one of the things that allowed them to make peace with that was having some length in Hoeing's contract. And the fact that they've got a guy young in his career that they can kind of fine tune, work with, and help develop in the years to come. And there's some club control there. And we'll see what happens with Tanner Scott going forward. Obviously, they've got a little more time with Jason Adam, which is good. But I think you have to consider it a win. We'll see what happens. Next year, there's going to be limited options. Now, AJ was talking about the next wave of starting pitchers behind Lesko and Major and Snelling, and I feel really good about those guys. Those are some names that obviously we'll get more familiar with going forward, and hopefully they're able to develop and be impactful pieces once called upon, once needed. But that's going to be a question now going forward with the Cease trade, with the Arise trade, with the Tanner Scott deal and Jason Adam. They've stripped that prospect top 30 down real good. And I still have the two guys, Ethan Salas, Leo DeVries. And those are the two guys that everybody is most enamored by and excited about. And so I think having them still around is just a huge, huge plus. And you have to feel good about that. But you have to wonder now going forward, maybe not necessarily this year, hopefully not, but next year down the line, whether it's outfield, going back to Jacob Marcy, you know what I mean? Obviously Homer Bush, Dylan Head, Graham Pauley, a guy that could maybe factor into the outfield mix, infielder by trade, and then the arms. Might there come a time where they really could use, some young, cheap, controllable assets that they just don't have anymore. Now they've got to rise through next year. They've got Cease through next year. Hopefully, if it's a long-term contract, we'll see. I'm not sure that's going to be a topic. Who do you invest in? How many guys can you invest in? It looks like the Padres are going to be back below the CBT. So clear all the penalties, all of that out of the way, which is good. You get that hard reset. And then next year, I think the expectation is probably that they're going to be, frugal. They're not going to take a 2022 approach. But if they decide to push through, the penalties won't be as severe. And so you have a little bit of breathing room going forward. But what does that mean? Because, everybody thought 3 postseasons, Juan Soto. You had the possibility of 2. You only ended up getting 1. Kind of similar type of situation with the rise and cease. You make those trades thinking, okay, we got these guys for 2 seasons. But you don't want to run into a situation where you're like, okay, are we going to need to be a seller? And so these are the big questions now going forward, is like, what impact does that have on this team next year and beyond, the farm, so and so. As we know, AJ Preller has been elite at restocking the farm, seemed to have a good draft. And so we'll see what happens there. And the fact of the matter is, like, what would they have needed to get up to give up to get Dylan Cease at the deadline, given the cost of guys, given the cost of starting pitchers? An incredible amount. Same for Luis Ariz. And so if you look at those, like many have pointed out, as deadline deals, like they got a haul. Like Dylan Cease, Luis Ariz, Jason Adam, Tanner Scott, et cetera, et cetera. You feel really, really, really good. Just the full body of work that AJ Preller has done ahead of the deadline. Some of those deals way in advance of it. And fact is, the team got better. The club got better today as a result of these deals. Again, there will be some questions about the future, and there might be some situations arise where you really miss some of these guys. But as it stands right now, 2024 team, which, everybody is consumed by the here and now. They want a run like 2022 or beyond. The National League is as gettable as ever. I mean, the Phillies are kind of like in their own stratosphere. Braves dinged up, and we've seen them come back to the pack. Dodgers haven't run away with the National League West the way that we're accustomed to seeing. And after Tuesday, 5.5 games, get them again Wednesday, 4.5 games. You know what I mean? You're still got a lot of work to do, but this is not outside the realm of possibility with 2 months left in the season. And so you give yourself a chance, if you continue to play the way that they have these last couple of weeks, to make a run at the division, which seemed like a long shot a long time ago. And now, as of Tuesday night, Braves with a half-game lead on the Mets and the Padres. And you're seeing more and more separation. Diamondbacks behind them, a half game. Cardinals 2 games. Pirates 2 games. And so it's all right there. And so it makes sense to be aggressive. I don't think they were reckless. They kept the 2 crown jewels of the farm. And so we'll see how those guys develop over the next couple of years. But you certainly expect them to be impact pieces for the Padres. And you solidified one of the clear areas of need. It was bullpen, starters. And those things can kind of work hand in hand. Obviously, if you have great starters, then that's going to take some pressure off the bullpen. If you have a really, really good bullpen, that's going to take some pressure off the starters. We basically saw with Major's start over the weekend, like essentially like an opener type role. And they were able to win that game. And so there might be more situations like that where maybe they get multiple innings out of Hoeing. You know what I mean? And then hand it off to the Yuki Matsuis and Marhones, Estradas, Scotts, and Adams, and of course Suarez. And even on Tuesday's game, where Waldron only gets you through 4 innings, and those guys are having to take care of the last 6. A heavy workload for the bullpen, more off days, certainly a help. But now there's more options, and so solidifying the bullpen the way that they have. I mean, I thought after Adam, you're thinking of the starter market. And I think everybody was a little bit shocked when Tanner Scott's name came up, and very, very impressive. Again, it was at a steep price, so like you can't ignore that part of it. I think the price tag stung for many, but again, this is a move for now. hopefully Hoeing can develop into something useful for this team. And so you can kind of look at it that way. I'm trying to think anything else, from our time in the clubhouse that jumped out to me. Appreciate Oz listening on the YouTube stream. I didn't even promote this. It was late. I was just kind of throwing this together last minute. So a handful of you guys are watching on the YouTube stream. But it was mostly just to get something out in the world, whether it's tonight or whether it's tomorrow for folks to listen to or watch. So appreciate Oz or OZ. Great day to be a Padres fan. Sure is one of the best. And one of the best wins of the season on what is a really, really crowded list. Going back to the Cubs game, going back to the win at Dodger Stadium where Jackson Merrill had the go-ahead run. Manny against the Diamondbacks, Manny and Profar. Obviously the Nats games. Jackson Merrill and Donovan Solano, 2 homer games, a walk-off there. Jay Cronenworth's walk-off, Luis Arraez, Friday night in the City Connects, early on in his Padres career. It's the list goes on and on and on. It's incredible. And today, one of the best days of the season between, I think, what they did at the deadline and then what they did to come back and get a win in really impressive fashion. Manny Machado showing why he's the captain. 2 homers, 2 incredible defensive plays. Jackson Merrill, the catch in center field as well. But Manny Machado, man, nobody's mad at him for blowing a bubble anymore. I mean, dude has been incredible. And again, closing in on some history. Luis Arraez, super excited that Tanner Scott is coming to town. He said Tanner Scott was his closest friend during his days with the Marlins and just loves the guy. Super excited about him. Really, really good. Obviously, raved about, again, Brian Hoeing. And so Arraez is just glowing. Jason Adam got a chance to talk to him. He didn't know kind of what the setup would be. He's really, really excited to join the Padres. Said this team just feels really connected, and obviously he's played really good the last couple weeks. But just said he was happy to fill whatever role wherever they need him. And so, it was good to get those guys' perspective. Manny Machado obviously excited about what they've done and feeling hey, we've proven that we can contend, we can do some things. This has just given us a better chance to really go for it. The way they think they can, the way they think they're built for, and they are built different compared to what we saw last season. So super, super encouraging, really, really fun day, and we'll see where they go from here. But this team is trending in a really, really promising direction. And then you factor in Fernando Tatis Jr. swinging a little bit more in the cage, ramping up a little bit, not all the way according to Mike Schilt, but he's getting there. He's making some progress with that leg. And then Joe Musgrove, hopefully we see him before too long as well. So factor in those returns with these additions and just the makeup of this team, a National League that's right there for the getting. I think there's reason to feel really good as a Padres fan, which has been difficult in recent regular seasons. After the midway point of 2021, from mid-August on, well, beyond the midway point, tough finish there. 2022 was a grind until the last couple weeks of September. 2023, a grind all year. This year, a grind the first, couple months of the season, start to hit their stride. And they've been playing really, really good for the last, 2+ months? Really 3 months, I think. Have a chance to go let me look at this again. I was looking at their month by month record, and I don't think last year's I don't know how many winning months last year's team had, but obviously it wasn't many. Whereas this year's team, I was just looking at this, 12-15 in April, 16-11 in May, rough start to June, ended up going 15-13, and now 11-9 in July. And so they're going to 12-9 now in July. And so 3 straight winning months, certainly not something that we saw a year ago. And so it's fun. It's fun to be a Padres fan right now. I was checking back in. Whenever we think they've had their best game, they keep giving us more. Let's hope that continues the rest of the regular season and on to October. So that's it. Like I said, wanted to get something in the feeds, wanted to get something on YouTube. And so Hope this is enjoyable for you. Little recap of a thrilling win Tuesday, but a lot of time on the deadline because that was kind of the big headline of the day. What was a really, really good day for your San Diego Padres. That's that. Thanks for hanging, and we'll see you, Derek and I, on our regularly scheduled Thursday pod. Thanks, everybody.